Hello and welcome to another edition of the C Squared Podcast. Your host Curtis with my co-host Aliyah, and today we are here with Jelena Taylor, who is a solo musician, and we're going to be talking to her for the next 30 to 40 minutes or so about her career, life, aliens, horror, and all sorts of fun stuff. So to start off, thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
Excited to be here.
So to start off, I'm going to get it over to Aliyah for question number one.
All right, Jelena. Please, for those who are not familiar with your work, who are listening to this podcast, please give us a nutshell version of who you are and what you do in the realms of metal.
Yeah, so I'm Jelena. I've been playing guitar for well over 20 years now, I think. And I've played in multiple bands. Used to play in a band called the Scarlet Motions. Shout out to them. Back in LA. I live in the Midwest now, so just kind of getting back up and running to doing music again. Kind of took a little break for a while there, but I'm ready to get at it again. I'm a huge metalhead, huge guitar nerd. I have 2 cats and a husband, and that's pretty much all right now.
Perfect. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got started playing guitar and how you got into metal?
Oh yeah. So it all started with my big brother Mirko. Shout out to him too. His influence when I was a kid, he was my hero. You know, he still is in many ways. And he was really into Metallica. And I just remember going, "What's that?" And ever since then, that's how it kind of went downhill, uphill. I don't know, whichever way you want to put it. And like Metallica was like my all-time favorite band growing up. That was like the band. James Hetfield, you know, totally had a crush on him when I was like 12, you know. And I could probably like sing that in their entire discography. And I wanted to originally play drums, but at the time we were, you know, immigrants from Eastern Europe living in a tiny apartment, so in West LA. So my parents were like, "No, just play guitar like your brother." So I was like, okay, you know, we couldn't fit a drum kit or afford to lose any neighbors and stuff like that with all the noise. So that's kind of how I started playing guitar, and haven't stopped since.
So did your brother like kind of help teach you when you first started, or did you just self-taught the whole way? Or
Oh no, yeah, he definitely helped me get started. You know, because I wouldn't like put his guitar down. He was like, "Stop doing it, stop touching my guitar," because he was like 5 years older than me, you know. And so actually for my 14th birthday, this is like one of my all-time favorite memories in general. He took me out to a guitar store and like had me close my eyes. I didn't know where I was going or anything. And he's like, "Open your eyes." And he's like, "Now you can pick whichever guitar you want, like, you know, within reason, within our budget." Yeah. So he bought me my very first guitar. It was really fun. And like he taught me how to play like, you know, the first few songs of Metallica that were really easy, like For Whom the Bell Tolls and things like that. And so yeah, it's definitely huge influence from my brother, and I owe him everything in getting me started.
I want to jump in, please. So let's talk about your new song today. Can you kind of go over the basis of the song and kind of like, I know it's got a little bit of a theme. Anyways, if you can kind of go over that a little bit. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's about Ellen Ripley from the 1979 cult hit classic, I don't know how that's said, if I said that properly, movie, Alien, you know, with Sigourney Weaver. And I know maybe not a lot of people nowadays know about that movie because it's a little bit older now. But for the young ones who are curious, it's an awesome movie. It's kind of more of a psychological thriller than anything else, I would say, at this point. And it's known for its special effects, which again were kind of innovative for the day, for that decade. And my favorite artist, Geiger, was the one who created the xenomorph alien, which was the terrifying, mysterious entity in the movie. So when I rewatched this as an adult, I was still terrified by it, almost just as much as I was when I was a kid. And Ellen Ripley's character just really inspired me because she's so strong and capable And don't want to give away too much of the movie, but thinking about her and her story got me inspired to write some riffs, some like death metal-y riffs, thinking about her like fighting the entity in space all alone, when she might be terrified out of her mind, because I know I would be. And so the song is kind of through her eyes. And my buddy Andrew decided to collaborate with me, since I think I'm a terrible death metal vocalist. And I just kind of really envisioned the song being a death metal song, because I love Morbid Angel and big influence by them and Behemoth and all those kinds of like death metal, black metal kind of bands. So I wanted to give it like that really brutal kind of eerie feeling, and just, have an excuse to shred and kind of get back in the game with it. So the lyrics basically take you through the journey of the movie through Ellen Ripley's eyes, from start to finish, basically. But it's kind of made to be slightly ambiguous. So if you watch the movie and then read the lyrics and listen to the song, it will kind of like connect the dots for you.
Makes sense. Now, I had a question about that. Were you always intending on releasing it on Alien Day? I didn't even know there was such a thing as Alien Day. Like when Aliyah told me about it, I had no idea what she was talking about until I Googled it.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't either for a few years, until like 2015 or so. My old coworkers at Line 6 actually told me about it. I was like, what's that? Because I never really paid attention to the tiny details of the movie at first. But apparently it's the planet that they land on in the movie is called LV 426. So that's why 426 is the Alien Day. And I did plan to originally release it last year. But, things got in the way, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But, the bug of perfectionism got to me, and I was like, no, I need to redo this part. I need to redo that part. And I just couldn't bear to release it last year. So I actually spent a whole other year on it.
Fair.
Yeah.
Aliyah, do you have a follow-up before I go on? I want to go on to a slightly different subject, but.
Well, why don't we go into right now what kind of went on behind the scenes and why it took another year to really get this out there?
Yeah. So to be perfectly honest, basically my mental health kind of took a toll on me. Had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life, which is, totally fine to talk about, because I feel like the mental health topic needs to be brought to light as much as possible. So even if one person out there is listening to this, I hope you hear this and I hope it inspires you a little bit. But I was just like suffering from depression and anxiety, and the perfectionism aspect really, really got to me. Just really wanting the song to be perfect, picking it apart, that negative voice in your head just going on and on, like, no, this isn't good enough. You're never going to be good enough. And so at some point you have to like bind and gag that voice and throw it in the trunk, And, sometimes the only way to do that is to go to a therapist and talk to somebody, or just even talk to a friend. I've talked to many friends and family members, but at one point I did start going to therapy, and that's helped a lot. So, I discovered I have obsessive compulsive disorder. So that definitely played into a lot of the music writing and why I couldn't feel like I could move forward, because I kept getting stuck in a loop, And anyone who has OCD might like actually relate to that and understand what that feels like. So yeah, releasing the song is really, really meaningful to me in that regard, because it feels like I'm breaking through that loop and getting back out there again in terms of, just living my life and learning to battle with these little issues day by day.
Now, so how do I want to phrase this without sounding weird or anything like that? Was that the only thing that was going on behind the scenes that took me to take another period of time? Or?
Yeah, pretty much. There were also just other things like switching jobs a bunch of times. I had a job that I was kind of unhappy at. I won't say where it was, not music related at all. So, but yeah, it was just making me miserable on top of everything, and kind of exacerbating my issue with the, the negative thoughts, intrusive thoughts, the OCD. So once I quit that job, it just like opened things back up for me again, even though I was like, oh, what am I going to do now? I kind of rage quit actually. So, but I do not regret it because it opened a lot more doors for me, and I'm in a much, much better place now. So yeah, it was just kind of like a simultaneous thing of job situation that was making me miserable, my mental health getting exacerbated by that, the pandemic, everything, all of it just combined. I was just feeling really overwhelmed, and I realized I had to take a step back and just be like, you know what? What's another year? Like, or I thought it was going to be a few months, but it turned out being a year, and I thought, I need to push it out now. So that's kind of how that happened.
So why did you choose to release it under your own name instead of like a band name? Because it's because the collaboration. So I was actually kind of curious what the thought process was there, if any.
Yeah, I was actually, this was actually going to be a band back in 2019, and then the pandemic hit. So that kind of like threw everything off, and it wasn't just me. I mean, it was my vocalist, Andrew, that collaborated with me here. He and I were starting a band with my husband, Justin, and my other pal, who I haven't even actually heard from him in a while, so hope he's doing okay. But yeah, the pandemic basically threw everything off. And now we're all kind of like in different spots in our life, 2-3 years later. So we all kind of decided a band would be a little bit too much of a commitment at this time. So that being one of the reasons. And then the other reason is just because at this point in my life, I just feel like I want to try to focus on getting my own songs out there. This one song happens to be a collaboration, and I couldn't let it go. I just thought it was too awesome not to like release it, Yeah. And I'm incredibly thankful for everybody that put time and energy into it. But yeah, for the rest of the time, I'm probably going to be focusing on doing like more multi-instrumental stuff and just like releasing my own songs and things. Even relearning how to like record and stuff, because there's a lot of stuff I don't know anymore. So yeah, that's kind of why it's mainly it was the whole aspect of the band got disbanded by the pandemic and threw our lives into separate directions, and the aspect of, okay, well, now I want to write a solo album, or at least release a bunch of songs and hopefully turn it into an album. I still don't know what I'm doing.
Fair. Are they death metal, I think, or what?
I love death metal. It might end up kind of going in separate directions. I'm trying not to limit myself too much in that regard. Some of the songs that I kind of already have written are a little on the proggier side, so like kind of progressive metal. Definitely all gonna be metal, probably. Nothing like off that track, but definitely gonna have different kind of elements to it, because I love all the metal. That's another reason why it took me so long to like want to start up another project again, is because I just love all the different subgenres of metal. I mean, all of them. I could never decide, do I want to be folk metal? Do I want to be death metal? Do I want to be prog metal? And there's just so much to choose from, and they're all great. So, they're all inspiring.
So now, okay, so like the first song, like this is your first solo track, correct? Or am I mistaken on that?
Technically, I think so. Yeah, this is the first time I've ever released my own piece of music on like Spotify and iTunes and stuff like that. So yes.
Cool. Okay, so then my question is going to be, it should make sense. So how do you think, so if you're going to be kind of doing all these mishmash of different genres as you go along, how are you planning on kind of marketing yourself? Like, what are you? How like this, because like like me, when I heard this, I'm thinking you're a death metal person. So how are you going to kind of overcome that hurdle of like, I do all these different sounds?
I guess I was kind of going to let that shape itself as I go along. But that is a very good question, and probably something I should think more about.
Fair. Okay. I'm opening up a can of worms. I apologize. Was it intending to?
No. No, that's totally fine because as I was telling Aliyah earlier in the day today, I'm like, there's a lot of stuff I really didn't think through.
Fair.
So
Everybody knows that though. So okay, because like so like this is kind of like more of a death metal song that we got. At least I think it is like that. Who? What are you going to do to follow it up? Do you think we're going to do like folk metal then, or what's?
No.
I'm sorry.
No,
The plan, if there is one.
I guess if I really had to lump myself into like a specific category, when I think about the next song I'm going to be working on, I would say probably as a whole it's going to be like progressive death metal. The only issue with calling my only issue with calling it death metal specifically is that I don't think I'm going to have a vocalist for the rest of the stuff, or at least for the next song. It's going to be instrumental. So that's kind of why I don't know if it's correct to call it death metal, since death metal is more characterized by the guttural vocals, Although, I mean, there are other elements, certainly, like tremolo picking and blast beats. Those are definitely more black metal / death metal. So, I mean, there's definitely going to be some elements of that, but the next song is definitely going to be more proggy. It's got weird time signatures, might not even have blast beats at all. So we'll see, but it will be heavy regardless. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so you're going to try to market yourself or try to do your songs as like a progressive death metal without a vocalist.
I guess so, yeah. If I had to like choose one specific label.
I'm sending you a death metal band. I know that's instrumental, just so you know. It's going in your Instagram, just so you know. But
awesome.
That's a little bit off topic, but where was I going with this? Aliyah, you do a follow-up question. I just lost my whole train of thought because I was thinking about the band I was going to send her.
Oh man, I don't know. Well, I wanted to bring up the fact that you actually mentioned in the press release that for the Perfect Survivor song that you released today, when we're recording this, you mentioned that you came up with one of the starting building blocks for the song when you were doing the 100 Days of Riffs challenge on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like and
what is
that was when it...
Thank you. I wanted to know what that was.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so I'll tell you exactly where first that was inspired by. There is a makeup artist that I follow on YouTube and Instagram, I guess, technically. She goes by Glam and Gore. Very popular. I'm sure a lot of people know about her.
I love her. She's amazing.
She is. She's so amazing. And I love her work. She had a couple of videos in terms of like how to find your passion, or how to like market your passion, whatever it may be. Hers obviously being like, makeup artistry and special effects and such. So I kind of took that. I think she said she did 100 days of makeup, and I kind of loved that idea. So I went with that and just called it 100 Days of Riffs, because I thought, well, her thing's makeup, my thing is guitar. I love guitar. I've played it since I was 12, which is a very long time now. And so I kind of just went with that. And I did notice some people had done it before too, which was cool. So I went with it and I stuck with it. It was grueling at times because at the time I did have a long commute to work out here in from Indiana to Chicago. So like some days I'd come home and I'd be like, oh, I don't want to, but you know what? I got to do it. I just got to do it. I promised myself I would do it. So I did. And some days it was acoustic guitar, some days it was electric. Got to like
was it all original
lot.
riffs, or was it a mix?
No, it was a mix. So some days I would just be like messing around and make my own riffs, and then other days I would like, I don't know, play Judas Priest or something like that. Just trying to keep it fresh, trying to keep practicing, even if it was like 10-20 minutes a day. Because at that time I struggled with motivation, so that is kind of what kept me going and kept me like disciplined. And it was really fun actually, and super rewarding at the end, even if like it didn't necessarily, like the videos weren't like some amazing production by any means, but it was just like the process of doing it and post the accountability of posting it online, for my friends to see. I was like, well, I gotta keep doing it. My friends are waiting, for a video today.
Right.
And yeah, it was during one of those days where I was thinking about Ellen Ripley from Alien, and as I was thinking about it, the riff just started flowing, and I was like, this is a good one. I should keep this one. And this was like in 2018 when I came up with that riff. So 4 years later, it's now a whole song.
That's so cool.
So
Yeah.
how do you ensure that you're going to be, keeping going with the momentum? Because once you release one song, I would imagine you would want to keep going.
Yeah. So I did start writing a lot of music back in 2015. And I think I have about like 7 unfinished songs. And I kind of used this song as a segue into breaking out of that. As I said earlier, it was like very important to me in terms of getting out of the perfectionism loop of feeling like, oh no, it's not good enough. I got to keep going, got to keep working on it. So now that this one is out, I kind of feel like, oh, it's a breakthrough. Like I can finally write and not have to worry about it being super perfect. And, just also reminding myself it's not that big of a deal. Like people release music all the time and the market is like super saturated anyway. Like no one's going to care if I have one little flub in the recording, I just have to like kind of remind myself of these things, and that, getting the music out there is much more important than focusing on the tiny details of, oh, the snare doesn't sound right on this part of the song.
I mean, there's always going to be people who nitpick about stuff like that, but
yeah,
you're right. I think I like that perspective.
Most people don't.
Yeah.
Most people won't notice. Yeah.
Yeah, they won't. And I know that when I listen to my friends' music, it's like, because I tried to now look at it from a perspective of how would I react if this was my friend's song. And I know that listening to it for the first time with your own ears, it's like you're hearing what emotion they're trying to convey more than you're listening for the imperfections in the sound. Unless your friend is like, oh, hey, can you listen to the snare on this? That's a different story. But like when you first listen to music, you don't think about like the engineering aspect or the mistakes or this or that, because I have so many favorite artists who, weren't necessarily the shredders of our time, but they had like such emotion in their playing. Like for example, Death, that band is like, or Control Denied, both of those bands are like some of my favorite bands in the world. And even though a lot of people consider Chuck Schuldiner a shredder, he definitely had little flubs here and there, but that was what made the song. And you can definitely feel the emotion in the songs much more than, let's say, someone who might be like proficient in technicality, but isn't necessarily conveying an emotion. Anyway, I digress. Point being is, I think a lot of people just want someone to relate to. And I think music helps people connect and relate to each other. So that's what I try to keep in mind. And that's what's going to keep my momentum going now, because I have all these songs almost like done. And I just need to work on them, each one a little bit more, and get them pushed out.
Fair enough. Okay, so Leah, we should probably switch topics. There was one that you wanted to take up, I think.
Yeah, we can. I know we mentioned this a little bit earlier today during our discussion about the single and the press release. You mentioned some stigmas that you faced as a female guitarist in the metal world. Can you talk about your experiences and what it's been like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So being lumped into the category of female guitarist, it's fine in some regard, but it has been challenging because I kind of feel like people expect a certain thing from you, whether that's looks. I would say it's primarily looks. Like it seems like there's like this added pressure when you're a female or woman to look a certain way, act a certain way, be the cool chick. No, be the hot chick. Be, be the really nice one. No, be a bitch, be a boss. No, be polite. It's like you can't win. Sometimes I feel like you can't win. And no matter what you do, somebody somewhere has to make the comments, usually online, through anonymous goggles of like, oh, get back in the kitchen and make me a sandwich. Woman, quit guitar. You suck. Woman, things like that. So that has certainly been challenging, especially when I first discovered YouTube and the fact that I could post the video online. Because I didn't know how to react to that, to be honest. Nowadays, I just kind of let it roll off the shoulder, so to speak. But there's a lot of also interesting perspectives in the guitar community. Because as I said in the beginning of this video or call, I should say, that I'm a huge guitar nerd. I love guitar. I know a lot about guitar. I could probably, help people build a guitar if they really wanted to. I never actually built one myself, but I could help you build one theoretically, hypothetically speaking. So having said that, there's a lot of times where I feel like people don't trust me or my opinion because I'm a woman. And a lot of the times it didn't occur to me until later when I realized it, and it's kind of disheartening because it's like my brain works just as well as anybody else's. I don't think that playing guitar requires any kind of testosterone per se. So, it's about creativity. If anything, creativity is a very feminine trait. So I kind of think it's strange how, a woman who's a violinist doesn't get anywhere near the hate that a woman who plays metal guitar is. And maybe it has something to do with the fact that metal is stereotyped as being aggressive, But I think a lot of women and girls love metal, and maybe they're just not, encouraged enough to kind of step out into the light to keep doing it.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because I feel like women who are like keyboardists or vocalists don't get the same kind of stigma that a woman who is a guitarist will get.
Right.
Maybe a female harsh vocalist will get a little bit because those are roles that are like guy roles.
I have a theory about that.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Oh no, I want to ask a question, but let's hear your theory because I don't want you to forget your theory.
Well, the only thing that I can really think of is just that it comes down to guys, and not all guys, obviously. Like, actually, I would say a very small percentage of guys.
Hashtag not all men.
I'm gonna
hashtag not. I would say a very small percentage of guys, but they're just loud. That get threatened. They get threatened by women who might do something that they like better than they do. So they feel the need to tear them down. And I've seen women do the same thing actually. So it's not just men, but I would say insecurity in general kind of plays into it a bit. That's not to say that I'm amazing or something, but I definitely, can say that I'm a proficient guitar player. And I think some people might feel threatened by that, especially some guys who might get less attention than me or something. I mean, some people I've played in bands with who shall remain unnamed didn't like that I had more attention than they did. And they would claim, oh, it's because you're a girl. And I'm like, or maybe it's because I'm not as sloppy as you. Things like that. But yeah, what was your question?
Well, I was kind of going to ask because I basically work with all women basically. So I've never really seen this a lot, at least with them. So do you think, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist obviously, because obviously it happens, but do you think it is mainly just a small percentage of people? Because it does, it seems like it's always just
yeah, I think it is. Yeah. It's just I guess it's just hurtful when, well, I would say the music industry is kind of rampant with it itself. Sure. That's a different story. And I'm sure it depends on the company as well. But in terms of those ones that want to tear people down, I think that is a small percentage. I tend to believe that most people are good or have good intentions. Yeah. So same. It's not like I feel I don't feel like victimized. I don't feel like I'm, being torn apart by everyone or something like that. It's just that small amount tend to be really loud and usually anonymous,
This is just human survival instinct. We always fixate on the negative, like,
yeah,
because that's the danger. We don't have to pay attention to the positive. It's like, okay, it's positive. We don't need to worry about it. We worry about the negative. That's what can kill us.
Totally.
Evolutionarily speaking, psychologically speaking, but yeah.
Yeah, well said. Especially like when you're first starting out, like it might be intimidating to new artists because when they see like they might see like tons of comments from family and friends saying, "Wow, you're so awesome," and then you have that one anonymous, guy living in the basement, kind of like keyboard warrior from Amon Mars. You suck. And like, but that sticks with you, and for some reason that one, you focus on that one instead of the rest. So I totally agree, Aliyah.
Yeah. Where do we want to go with this, Aliyah? I think we had
you look like you wanted to ask a question, so
I do, but
go ahead.
Because I'm the guy. If I ask any questions, I'm just going to sound stupid, so I'm not going to freaking do it.
There's no stupid questions, only stupid answers. That's what my dad always says.
No, I don't know. I mean, I think this is my own opinion. It's a question / statement. I think in general, it's a very small percentage of people. I think. I mean, but again, I'm on the receiving end of it, so I mean, maybe I'm not seeing it. But you were going to say something, Aliyah?
I think you're right. I think it's a very small percentage of people who, especially as the internet progresses, like, people start realizing that this can come back to you. You're not as anonymous as you used to be. So people aren't as big of bullies as they used to be.
Yeah,
and right. Some people, but the thing is that Jelena, you have been around in the music scene for a while now. And like, when did you upload your first video to YouTube?
I just found it
in the YouTube's infancies, which was not that long ago.
Actually, I made my very first video probably private at this point, but it was in, I think, 2009. Yeah, 2009, I think it was. Yeah, it was a long time ago, but I opened my YouTube channel in 2006, which is the year I turned 21. So yeah, I'm old. I'm ancient. No, just kidding. But like, I'm in the best time of my life right now. So whoever's watching, if you're losing hope and in your 20s, please know that your 30s can be just as good.
Amen.
So yeah, I'm absolutely loving life right now. I'm thriving. And I started my YouTube a long time ago, and I never had the intention of necessarily posting anything, but I got inspired by other musicians. And even despite some of the hate in the beginning with some of them, it's like, I would say most of them were nice, and I really enjoyed the feedback. I love the community. There's definitely something to be said about, I'm sure it's a whole topic all on its own, the whole internet thing and just being able to connect with people. Because when I was in high school, it's like, the only form of social media that we had back then was forums. And I was on the Cannibal Corpse forum. And I was on the Fear Factory forum. And that's it. And that was like my way of socializing with other metalheads, because where I went to school, not a lot of people really liked that subgenre. So, shout out to anyone who knows Biodroid Girl, because that was my first ever username.
I want to ask a quick question, but I know we're starting to run long here, but if assuming you guys got a couple more minutes, I just want to talk about your YouTube channel. Like, it seems a bit, I've been inactive for a bit. It looks like your last post was a few years ago, but how the heck did you get like 80,000 views on the one? It was like 79,000.
I don't know. That was just one of the ones that like went randomly viral, I guess. And I guess a lot of Death fans out there, and I loved that song. I just randomly posted it. I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I had no intention whatsoever with that. I just wanted to post it because I loved the band Death, and I was like, hell yeah, I want to post this. And then one day I opened my computer and I was like, wow, there's a lot of comments on this. What's happening?
You got like close to 1,000 on just the one, and I was like, wow. But waited the year to post your next one. So anyways, are you planning on doing more, or because it looks like something that was working for you?
Yeah, I really love doing it. It's just I kind of like, that's one of the things that fell by the wayside with the mental health issues and whatnot. But I'm certainly planning on doing more. I love visual arts and representation like that. So definitely expect some stuff on there soon.
Cool. Yeah, no, I like, it looks like you were doing really good when you were posting it. So I was just kind of curious what happened there, but if it's just not happening, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Aliyah, cover before we wrap up. I know we're like 45 minutes in now.
Yeah, we should
felt like
probably wrap
5
it up
minutes.
pretty soon, but I did want to ask really quick, because now I know you have pretty intensive industry experience in Los Angeles. And you live in the Midwest now with me, not with me, but like we both live in the Midwest
Near
and
you.
nearby, yeah. And do you notice any major cultural differences between the music scene in Los Angeles versus the music scene in the Midwest, or is it kind of the same? What do you think?
It seems pretty similar so far. One thing I will say is that I haven't had a chance to play out here yet, so like live. So I'm still kind of waiting to see what that experience will be like. I'm not sure, like in terms of supportiveness, how it seems to be out here, but so far I have had a great time going to shows. It seems just like LA in that regard, and everyone, even if you don't know them, it's always the same thing. Like the metalheads, it's like that unspoken brotherhood / sisterhood of metal, and people who get it, they just get it. So that's always still there. But yeah, I will say that in general, out here in the Midwest, there's definitely more of a focus on what's the word? Not honor, but like integrity, I guess I would say, rather than in LA, which can get pretty dicey in terms of morals and integrity, and a lot of like egos in the picture, and a lot of like me, I types of people, which can get like really intimidating for anybody that isn't like that, especially if you're more introverted. I'm slightly more introverted than extroverted, so I had a hell of a time trying to connect with people out there. And that's not to say I didn't make a lot of friends, because I did. I have a lot of amazing friends out there. There's definitely a whole scene of amazing musicians out there, like my friends out there in Cerebrus and other bands, who I had so much fun playing live with, and there was definitely a sense of camaraderie. But it's more like, overall though, it's more Hollywood, and that's something that I just didn't vibe with. So coming out here to the Midwest, it seems more down to earth and genuine. And I'm really, really looking forward to kind of playing more or trying to play actual shows out here and see what that experience would be like in comparison to LA.
Right on.
Yeah.
That's kind of my take on it too, but I didn't spend as much time in LA. I spent more time here, so I'm more biased. So I think we should go ahead and wrap things up. So for the last point, let's why don't you tell people where they can find your new single, where they should follow you, and what's coming next? Are you still doing a lyric video for this?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to find another vendor to do it through. The one that I originally wanted to do it a year ago was closed down. So if you know anyone, let me know. But yeah, I'm still intending on doing a lyric video, going to actually do a playthrough. And you can follow me on Instagram at Jelena Taylor. I'm definitely active on there. Not super active on Facebook right now. Maybe that'll change in the not too distant future. And same thing with YouTube, youtube.com/Jelena Taylor. That's with a J. And please also don't forget to follow my friend Craig Spencer. He's the monstrous lead guitar player in the intro. He does that first solo. He's awesome. And my buddy Andrew Osterbahn, he is the vocalist. He's also on Instagram. I think he's more active on there as well. He goes by Bones East Road, so follow him too. And yeah, it was just a brilliant collaboration. I really enjoyed doing it. It was a lot of fun, and that's the whole point, right? So thank you very much for having me. It was awesome. Thank you so much for everything you've done.
Thank you for coming on. And everyone, until next time, make like a bull and throw those horns up.